a couple of them done.
Any question about virtual machines, about any of those stuff?
Not
So now you know
yet.
how to create virtual machines?
I haven't gotten to that one yet. I knocked out the first couple of them of the. I think I'm on like 2.
Okay, I might show you how to do
Labs.
one today.
Okay.
So that would be good to see. Let me see if I can do remote on desktop connections to my server right here. Okay, so it's 8 o'clock. Let's see who's here today. We have few people. I guess they're still sleeping. Oh well. Okay, so we've been talking about chapter 4. We are in this section about the disk management. So you can do it with GUI, which is a lot easier to me, but some people they want to automate the process, and this is good, especially when you go to in the cloud and you want to write script to create a server for customer or something like that, so you can use a PowerShell. And anyway, for the GUI, I'll show you. This is my Windows 2016 server. So if you get disk management right here, okay, so that's my disk management here on the server. And as you notice, I have a separate partition, and I made one partition, just for the operating system, and I have another one here, which is another. It's empty, like almost 430 gig. This is 500 gig. And over here, I made 930 gigabyte for VMs, if I want to store VMs. So I can partition this one or shrink this one if I want. I can go over here and make partition active. You make it active to install the operating system. For example, if I want to put Windows 10 on it, I can do that. Or I can shrink the volume or delete it. Shrinking it means what? You reduce it. So let's say I want to make 200. Let me see. Where is the calculator? Calculator. So it's about 40,600. So if you want 200 gig, 200 times 1024, I believe. Okay.
Hey, Mr. Charif.
Record.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay, so I want to make 200 gig. You multiply 1024 times 200, so that'll give you 204,800. So if you want to shrink it, so you can do that. And put 204,800, and that will give you exactly 200 gig. And you shrink it, you see? Now I got 200 right here. And now once I get, this is unallocated, means it's free space. Now, Also, if I shrink this one here, I can join this free space here and this free space here in one volume. And that's what we were talking about last week. So, and also you have an option here. You have a new simple volume, and you create this new simple volume, and after that, give you a chance to format it with NTFS or whatever. So I'm going to do the same thing in here. If you want, you can go and shrink the volume. Let's say I want to give it, shrink it 100 gig or 50 gig or whatever. Let's say 100 times 10, 24. So basically you add 2 zeros to this, which is, that'll give you 10 to 400. So you go over here, you put 102400. So shrink it that much. So that will create you 100 gig. See that? Now we have allocated space. Now, of course, you cannot use this, you cannot join volume. You cannot join this one to this one. Anybody knows why? Come on. We talked about that before. Anytime you want to use volume or create redundancy on separate drive, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to convert it to dynamic. Remember that? So this is basic. In basic, you cannot join these together. You have to put them on a dynamic. This is something here. Okay, participant. All right. So this is basically how you manage it. Now, they're asking in here, can I do that on PowerShell? And the answer is yes. You get disk, and you put to bring a disk 1, for example, online and initialize it. And then you can set disk, which is a verb, noun, parameter, value, another parameter, another value. And you can initialize disk 1, and you can give it letter H if you want. New partition. This is like a new volume. We call it partition. Disk number 1, size blah blah blah, drive letter blah blah blah. And after you do create the partition, what are you supposed to do with it? You need to do what? You need to format it. So if you want to format it, format volume H file system, you can say NTFS, okay, or you can say REFS. It depends on the use, what you're using it for. If you want to boot from this drive, you cannot use ERFS, and if you want to use compression, you cannot use it for that, or encryption. So that's some of the features. You need to know the features of REFS and a limitation. If you have some kind of old drive around your, I don't know, so you can basically connect it to your machine, and you can create partitions, delete partition, simple volume, and you can practice on that. I think they're supposed to have a lab too. Now this is, we're talking about disk, which is like this guy here. And actually, by the way, those are physical disks, physical drives. So in my machine, I have 2 disks, and I'm ready to put another disk in here later on. I have a lot of drives, so I need to put another one here. So I will have a 3 terabytes on this one here. And later on, when I have a 3, I can, when we get to the chapter to create a RAID, I'll show you how to do the RAID on the software. So those are physical drives. Now they're talking about a virtual drive, virtual disk. It's working with virtual disk. So virtual disk I mean, it's the same thing, but it has a lot of advantage to create virtual disk. And the reason why, because it's a file that'll give you capabilities to copy it from place to place. And so you can replicate it. It's a file emulating a disk, and that's what we call it virtual disk. Now, when you come with virtual disk, we have two of them. We have virtual hard disk, VHD, which is it's an old one. The format virtual machine running Hyper-V used for this disk. Now they have a new one they call VHDX. So the default one was VHD. Is supported by the support disk up to 2 terabytes. Okay, so the VHDX support up to 64 terabyte virtual disk. So it has a more advantage. And the default for the what do you call the sector is 512 byte sectors on the FHD. On the FHDX, they use 4096. However, if, for example, you have an old machine like 2008 or so, some of the Windows, they do not support VHDX. So in this case, you need to do VHD. And of course, they have a lot of, okay, so that's what we talk, the next one they talk about. So this is some of the advantage as we see. When you create a virtual disk, you have the option to use VHD for the VHDX format. Or, it's supposed to be or. So you have a choice between this one and this one. If you have an old server like 2008 or so, you need to do VHD. And the difference they tell you, like we discussed earlier, VHD support up to 2 terabyte, where VHDX supports up to 64 terabyte. Now again, this is not a physical disk, that's virtual. Virtual disk means what? It's a file. And you can move it any way you want. You can replicate it, you can copy it, you can back up. So you can do whatever you want with it. And one of the advantage of VHDX, okay, it kind of like you can predict if that disk is going to be corrupt or not. So and that's what the advantage of it. So with VHDX disk, you can store custom metadata about the disk, indicating information such as what? OS version or the build number. And VHDX is resilient to power failure because it tracks updates in the metadata. So that's a good feature. You don't want to wait for the last minute to have a problem. So you can predict it. So also you can use PowerShell to create virtual disk, and also you can convert from VHD to VHDX using Hyper-V Manager or PowerShell. And usually when you do that, you use the word convert, okay? The verb convert. Let's see, the man have one here. Okay, so this is your Hyper-V server, and you can edit the disks, and you can see. First of all, let me see if I can get to that point. And this is, you can convert to this one here. So let me see if I can go to my server. Okay. So let's see if I can go to Hyper-V, and from the Hyper-V manager right here, the first thing I need to do, create virtual switch. Virtual switch manager, internal, virtual switch. You can put INT, SW. Okay. Now I can create virtual machine. You go new, virtual machine. Go next. Virtual machine name. We call it RM. SRV1. Now we're going to store it. I made a folder called GMs, for virtual machines. So I'm going to store it in this folder. So you go next. And I'm going to go generation 2. Why generation 2? What's the difference between the two? Like we discussed it before. First of all, generation 1 support 32-bit and 64. But they use the old technology, especially like hard drive. They use IDE. Okay, so, and they use an old BIOS. Okay, the new technology is UEFI base, which has a better firmware and supports 64-bit operating system. So it's better to use generation 2, but if you want to use legacy, if you want to support legacy environment, so you go to generation 1. And with generation 2, you can add controller, you can add drive on the fly. Okay, so you don't have to shut down the machine. So you go next. Now we give it 4096. As for maybe I can do Active Directory later on in this one here. And now it's going to ask you what switch you want to create. We already created the internal switch. So we'll go from here and you go next. Now it's creating the virtual disk. You see, by default, because I'm using 2019, server 2019. So by default, it's going to do VHDX. If it's an old Windows server, like Windows 2008 or so, it's going to be VHD. So at this point, I'm ready to go with VHDX. The only thing I need to do is change the, I can keep it 127. It's no big deal. I got a lot of storage anyway. So, and notice the path where is storing your VHDX. Okay, so a lot of people do mistakes. Always, this one's supposed to be on the RM server 1. That's your virtual machine, inside your virtual machine folder. Then, which is RM server 1, if you go to that folder, you're going to see the virtual disk for that. So we'll go next. Install operating system. Let's see if I have it here somewhere. I'm supposed to have this folder. ISA, yep. I think this is a 19 right here. You go next, finish. Okay, see, done with this one here. Now I can start it. Start the virtual machine. Space bar for this one. So now installing the operating system. We go next. This is familiar with the screen. This is Windows 2019 server. You go next, you install it. It'll take a few seconds. Now this is the decision to make, which version you want. By default, it's going to default to install Windows Server 2016 Standard, which is not a GUI, it's a core. So if I want to do, for example, if I want to make that machine as an Active Directory, I need the data center. Well, and I can create also inside this data center, I can create virtual machines. I want to. So it depends on the use. So I'm going to use this one, data center. I go next. Go from here. Custom. And that's the whole drive, which is okay. Here we go. And the rest of them is regular installation. So what we can do, we can let it run for a few minutes. Okay. So now, if you have VHD and you want to convert, you can convert it to VHDX, and that's what it says. This option converts a virtual hard disk by copying the contents to a new virtual hard disk. The new virtual hard disk can use a different type of format than the original virtual hard disk. Okay, when you create a virtual disk, you can be fixed. Fixed means what? You'll have a fixed size. For example, you say 127 gig, that's it, 127 gig. Now, if the 127 gig, you don't use all this space, well, guess what? If you use out of the 127 only, let's say 50, so you lose the rest, okay? So it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you think 127 you need it, then you do that. And plus, it'll give you better performance, okay? But for like, if you do it on the cloud, commercial, it'll be better to do dynamic. Dynamic means what? You can expand and you can shrink. So you pay as you go, as you use. So if your virtual machine is not using that resources, it'll free it to somebody else to use it. And that's the advantage of it. So virtual disk can be created dynamically, expanding, or fixed size. And that's what dynamic means. Dynamically expanding disk take up little space initially, but it grows to the assigned maximum size as data is stored on it. Best used for testing and non-speed critical application. Highlight non-speed critical application, because what I said a few minutes ago, a fixed disk will give you better performance. So if you have an application that needs better performance, like database or something like that, it's better to use fixed disk. And for the other purposes, you can use dynamic. And that's what they say here. Fixed size disk. They use the entire size of the disk is allocated on the host volume. What's the disadvantage of that? If you don't use the whole size, you waste it. It provides better performance since the overhead of expanding the disk is removed, because you're going to expand and shrink. So this overhead is going to be removed, so that's why it's going to be faster. Generally occupy contiguous cluster, reducing host disk fragmentation. Fragmentation means what? You'll have spaces between files. If you have spaces in between files, this is going to be a problem, because it's not going to be as fast as we expected. Okay? So it's going to reduce efficiency and speed. So why? Because you have blanks in between the files. So that's why it's in the old days, like every once in a while, whenever you if you delete a lot of files in your machine, you go and do defragmentation. Defragmentation basically eliminate the spaces in between files. Best used in production environment that require fast disk performance. So that's the advantage of using fixed size disk over dynamic. So what's the advantage of dynamic then? It grows as we need it. Now, I took so many seminars with AWS, and they call it elastic. That means you can pay as you go. If you consume that much, you pay that much. If you consume less, you pay less. If you consume more, you pay more. So that's what the dynamic means. Let's see what happened to our server. Well, guess what? Still installing. Yep, 96%, which is very good. Okay, any question at this point? Let's see, who has questions? No question. Usually people that have no questions, that's either they know the stuff or they don't know what to ask. So how about you? You know that stuff? Or you don't know what to ask?
Don't know what the.
So you know that stuff?
Create a virtual machine. Yeah.
What is the virtual machine?
No, creating a virtual machine. I've got it.
Okay. Yeah, that's the easy part. Now, this is another topic, which is the overview of file sharing. So basically, you need a server. I mean, that's one of the main reason why we create servers or we install servers is to share resources. And some of these resources we need to share information like files and folders and stuff. So this is, by the way, this is the main features that you don't need to or the role you didn't need to install it because it's by default is installed. And that's what they say. File and print sharing function are in the file storage services role. And to share folder or files in Windows Server, they use something called Server Message Block, SMB, which is it's a protocol. That's a protocol we use to share folders and allow you to authenticate in order to access these resources. Now, I heard this term a long time ago that with Unix, the Unix version of this one, they use Simba. It's like a Simba. And that's what they say. A Windows Server also supports a new file system, NFS, to communicate with Linux machine, Unix and Linux machine. So network file system is role service found under file and storage server need to be installed in order to support clients using the NFS protocol. So if you have a client using Unix or Linux, wants to access that information, so you can put NFS protocol. Now, when you create a file, Windows file shares, this is not complicated, but you need to know what you're doing in sense of permissions. So folders in Windows Server 2016 can be shared only by members of the administrator or server operator groups. And you have a few methods. We're gonna maybe give you an example on that. You have method to configure folder sharing. You have simple file sharing. You right click on it on the folder and you say share, and you can say, okay, who you want to share it with. This is one way to do it. This is simple. And if you have to have the advanced sharing, which is basically you'll have more permissions and more security. Share folder snap-ins. This basically you use the Microsoft Management Console, MMC. And you have another place in Windows 2016 and 2019 called File and Storage Services, which is on when you open the when you open your Windows. Let me see if we have it right here. See that? Right here under the dashboard. File and Storage Services. Okay, so this is done. It's waiting for us. Password 01. Password 01. Initial. So that's a generation 2 2019 virtual machine. So it's going to take a little bit to do. Okay. And that create file, you get permissions, read and read write. And by default, whoever create that file or folders is going to be the owner. So he's the one has like you can say a full control. So once you do that, you say share and you share. Very simple. Now, I might do that in a few minutes to show you how to do that. Now, share, advanced sharing, share this folder. You can share, put a share name. Some people, they share the file with the few or different names. So once you put the name share, then you add, and then you give a permissions, okay? And over here, they give you limit the number of simultaneous users. Now, why would you do that? Because it depends on your infrastructure, how many users you want to allow to connect at one time to that share. This is served to double purposes. One purpose is because sometimes like QuickBooks, for example, I always give that example because some software you buy licenses for them. You buy, for example, 5-user license, 10-user license, 25-user license. So you don't want the number of users that trying to access that server or that share folder to exceed the number of licenses that you have. This is the one reason. The other reason is to manage basically traffic. You don't want to put like, if your server or your network only handles certain limit, okay, so it's good to limit the number of users they can access that share folder. Okay. So we might do one folder like that, and you can accomplish the same thing using the create share with files and storage services. What I showed you earlier. So the option for setting the share file, SMB share quick, advanced application, and you have the NFS share, which is for Linux and Unix base. You have the same one. Now, sometimes also you can hide your share, like with the share name, you put the $sign next to it. And that's what we call administrative share or hidden share. And that's select the profile, share quick, you go next, and you follow. You can set the following additional options. Enable access-based enumeration. This is very important features. I don't know if you've seen that. Like sometimes when you go, for example, on network, and when you click on a network, you see a lot of machines in there. And it tells you each machine what folder has been shared. But you can view it regardless if you have permission to it or not. You see what I'm saying? So you can see the files. And this is like some kind of not a good idea. So what they do, this enable access-based enumeration. Only the people that have permission to access that folder can see what's been shared. So I think this is very, very, very good. And that's what they're talking about. Shows only the files and folders to which a user has at least read permission. Because before, if I did, like, let me see if I have it here. Let's see this. Let's see. My screen. Okay, see, this is on my machine. If you go to networks here and you click here, now of course I don't have too many of them, but if I have enough machines here and I have some files, like shared folders and files, you're gonna see them here. And that's the problem. So after I share a couple of them, you can see them by oh, this is going forever. So that's my server, which is I don't have nothing in it. So basically it shows what I have on my network. There we go. Let me move it to the other screen. So by enabling this, okay, so only the people that have permission can see it, which is good. Now, another feature is they allow caching or share, enables or disable offline files. Like for example, if you get disconnected from your server, so you can still work with your files offline. So this is what they say, enable and disable offline files. And this is the client-side caching they call it. Now, of course, we have encrypted data access. Like, for example, you're going to encrypt that information. So if you send in something between the shares, and somebody intercepted, so that will be basically encrypted. And you can set a permission for the share. By default, permissions are set to read only for everyone, and file and folder permission are inherited from the parent folder. So basically what that means, so everyone group is going to have read. Who's everyone? Anybody has access to the network. That means can see it. Now, on the old school, they used to tell us the first thing you need to do is disable this everyone group. And we need to go to share. You share your files with certain groups. Or if you want, you can share it with everyone. Then you can go to restricted from the security tab. Because whenever you right click on that share folder, you have a security tab. And in the security tab, you can restrict it. Hopefully we can see a couple of them. Oh, this is still running. And that's the permission. So you can do some kind of permission, customize. This is the access control here. You have full control, special, read, execute, whatever. And this is very, very, very critical sometimes because you need to know that user. You don't want to give him like more permission or more access than he needs. But at the same time, you don't want to give him less. So just the right, you need to give him the right permission to do his job. That's it. Now, sometimes this is like a conflict. How do I know what he needs? Because you're a system administrator. System administrator basically what? Can you tell, for example, somebody in the student services what access and who needs access to what? The answer is no. So what are you supposed to do? You need to basically talk to the people in charge of that department and say, okay, you told me you want to share this folder for your department, but can you give me, for example, who need to access it and what kind of permission we need to set? I don't make that decision. They need to make that decision. And it's a good idea for also to document it. I'll let them sign it because this is a responsibility. So some people, for example, just need to see the folder, like for example, if let's say student services wants to know the student services in Lafayette, they want to know all the students that register in New Iberia or whatever. So all what they need for financial aid purposes, all what they need to see to view the file. Okay, they don't need to change anything. Some of the employees just to see it, to see the list. Well, some of the employee, maybe they need to update. They need to write to the file. So that kind of stuff you need to ask the people in charge of that department to see what person needs what. Because you don't want to give them more, you don't want to give them less. Use the share folder snap in to create, delete, and monitor share, view open files, monitor and manage user connections for sessions. The share folder snap in has the following subnodes: shares, which view all the shares, their paths, and how many clients are connected to each share. And you need to, because sometimes you need to do maintenance. You don't want to restart that machine that has all the shares folders in it. Oh, I can see some people still using or accessing this file. I don't know. I can't wait to restart that server. So that's a good. And sometimes you have to notify users before you do any actions like this. Sessions, list user who have a network connection to the server. Open files, list files that network users have been open. And this is good for backup, because sometimes some backups, you cannot back up the files if you have the files open. So there's so many reasons why you need to use these features. So as I say, shared folder snap in, monitoring how much servers shares are being used and by whom, and see whether any files are being accessed over the network before shutting down the server. That's what we're talking about. That's very important. Okay, can we share files from the command line? And yes, this is an old DOS command. We used to use it a long time ago. So we use something called net share. You say net share, and then you say, okay, what documents equal D and :/documents. So basically, they'll create a share by name document, and it's going to be in the D document folders. And whenever you want to access it, you use the slashes, like / server name or computer name / the folder name. And the same thing, you can do net share my docs / delete. You can delete it, the share, or you can do the list. Net share, list shares on the computer. That's a command line. It's good to remember, net share. Yeah, this is some command lines maybe. Let's see. Let's see what happened to my server. Okay, server's ready. That's awesome. Yep, it's running and it's working beautifully. Password 01. That's not the most sophisticated password, right? Let's build in a profile. Let's see. If I go over here, let's see. And let me see this one here. I can right click on here. I can go to property and I can do shares. You see that sharing right here? Okay, and give me the share. I'm gonna share it unless if I have a user. So that's the only user I have with this one here, which is it right here. Okay, so the administrator. So only the administrator, which is good. Share. Make network share. Yes, then discovery. So notice how it's put it // cloud /-s, which is the server name. And this is the folder name ISO. Okay. So always, if you want to access any share, you need to do it like this. Done. Now, if I don't like that pass, what I could have done, I could have, I can create what we call network drive to access it. So, in able to do that, you go to network, and you right click on it, and you say map network drive. Okay, so the network drive basically a folder. What's the name of the folder? You can browse, or you can do the pass, which is // what we call that server? Cloud -s /ISO. See that? So instead looking for this pass all the time, I can look for drive Z, which is I can access that folder. See that? Now if I go to my drives, you see that? Now I have drive Z. So I can access it right away. You go to PC, and have Z in there. I don't need that one. Oh, that's for the virtual machine. So that's my Z right here, which is I have the ISO files. Now, of course, if I have, I go to my machine, which is, let's see, this machine. So I go right here. Now I go start this machine, and I can double click here. Did I double click here? Yep. Guys, too many open here. Let's see. Well, see your management. This is user. But anyway, it's supposed to give me, I didn't see it. It's supposed to give me a network. You click on, double click on the PC. Let's see. For some reason, it's my, oh, it's open in a different screen. That's what I'm looking for. It's right here. If you click here now, they ask me if I want to access this server. So if I know the credential, which is I do, administrator, and the password 01. I can say remember my credential. Now you see this is the ISO that I shared. It looks nice. Now I can see it. Okay. Now, because I put the credential, I can access it. But if you don't know the credential, you cannot access it. That's basically what. Now, if I want on this machine, if I go to this part on my machine, which is this Windows 10, I can map the network drive for // cloud s /ISO. And they say connect with different credential. Why not? Finish. See, now I cannot access unless I put the password. So put password 01. So now if I go to my local machine right here, okay, so I have Z or Y actually, it's letter Y right here, which is this drives points to the ISO folder on my server, on the cloud server. So, where we at? Let's see. So this is some of the good command. This anytime you see it's all a noun, a verb, and noun is basically PowerShell command. Now, I have something we just mentioned earlier. You have an administrative share. We used to call them hidden share. Hidden share basically, if you have a folder and you share the name and you put $sign next to it, basically nobody can see that share. Let's say I want to share with some of y'all the ISO folder. So I can tell you, okay, Brandon, there's a folder named ISO. This is the path to it, and this is the password. So you can access it. You're the only one. I'll give you that. And the reason why the one administrative share, I like the name better here, administrative share than hidden share, because it's hidden. You cannot see it when you browse. But administrative share for the administrator. Is on the old days, we used to have a lot of different files, or we need to access it. So if you log into any machine, only that the user with server privilege can see the files. And you can hide the whole drive even. Drive represent the drive letters of the disk volume, which is C, the $sign. So the main control and you have the IPC, means inter-process communications, and you have domain control, have all of the above plus. Net login used for storing default user profiles. And in some application, what you do, you can put automatic login. You can use the net login to automatically. Like, so if you go to AutoZone, you don't want the users to come in to log to the machine to get access to the POS system. So they can log in just to the POS, to the application, instead of to the machine itself. And how that machine gets logged in, so you can use net LPWZ, and you can put whatever user wants to do log in whenever you start that machine. Now, sys volume, this is where we store the Active Directory, basically, used by Active Directory for replication. So all of this is good to know about them. This one here, this is another one. For shared resources to be useful, user must know how to access them. And that's why you need to know the universal naming convention path. Now, what we mean by that, like we said, // server name / folder name. Okay, so you have to put them in that one. Or you can publish that folder on the Active Directory. If you publish that folder you want to share in the Active Directory, so you make it, anybody can search for it. And if you do that, it also is not only with the domain you log into. So, for example, if I'm in Lafayette location, SLCC at Lafayette campus, whatever, and if I publish it, put them in the Active Directory, and people on Appaloosis and UIP area can see it. They can search for it. Because why? Because we learned that Active Directory is a container, and the container has a lot of objects. So folder is an object. So people can search for it, and if they have access to it, the permission to access, they can access it. Map in the drive, it's like I did earlier. So to map a drive, you have to go to the network. From network, you right-click on it, and you say map network drive, and you give it the path. Okay, and that's what we did earlier. See this one I'm talking about? Okay, this one, network. You see that? Right click here, and you say map network drive. I need to choose the drive letter. I already use Z and Y, so I can use X. Then, if I know the server name or the computer name where the folder is located, I can just put the UNC. That's the UNC / server name / the share name. Yeah. So this is how you map network drive, and a lot of businesses they use that. For example, like a small firm, they want to share documents. They want to put documents in there. They some people they use it like a software, like a network software, like QuickBooks, and they need access to the applications, so they have to map the network drive where the application is located, and they create some kind of executable file like .exe, and they can use that. So it's a lot of use for that. Okay, any questions so far? So any of these is supposed to be able to use. So the NFS, we talked about it earlier. This is for what purpose? If you have Linux clients in your Active Directory or share, so you can use the NFS. So a file sharing protocol that allows users to access files and folders on other computer across a network. The native file sharing system found in Linux and Unix computers make network resources seem to be part of the local system. So this is one of the file system you can use. And Windows 16 support that feature. It's the same thing over here. We have this different setting. Kerberos. We use Kerberos for authentication. And map user access, allow and map user Unix access. So if you have a client basically with Linux, you can use this one here. And also we use it, I think, for the FTP server. Mistaken. Okay, so implementing an NFS data store, shared on a Windows failover cluster that provide highly available storage solution for application using NFS. I think I have a storage that use NFS. The iOmega that I have, they use NFS. So now when we talk about clustering features, the first thing you need to think about is when you talk about cluster servers, you talk about what? Talk about multiple of servers, they have access to the same storage. And this way you can make them cluster. Now without that, you cannot do that. That's why they create failover clusters. So if, for example, I have server 1, server 2, and server 3, whatever number of server, or server 1, server 2, if all the users connected to server 1 and for some reason that server goes down, and if I put server 1 and server 2 in cluster, automatically will fail over to server 2. So the user, they're not going to notice any changes. Of course, this is like a PowerShell commands. It's good to, I don't know if the lab has some of the, so you can practice them or put them on your list. This is the most important part right here, because you deal with this a lot. So you have two ways to secure files: share permissions and file and folder permission. Permission means what? Permission, it'll give you, once you log in, especially if it's in the Active Directory, once you log in, the Active Directory give you basically, it tells you what, if you can access that file or folder. It also knows what kind of permission you have, what level. Specify which user can access the file system object and what user can do with that object. And that's basically the permissions. Share permission apply when using a network to access shared file. And file and folder permissions always apply whether accessing network shares or local files. Now we say local. If you log into the machine, that's local. Definitely, when we talk about permissions and files and folders, we expect to put your folder in the member server, and you can put your information in there, and you can share. You can share files and folders. And from there, you can go to the Active Directory and you create some kind of groups, and you give access to the group. You don't give permission to individual user, unless if you have to. And the reason why, because like if you have 5, 6, 8, 9, whatever number of users, they work on the same office, they need access to the same printer, let's say. I'm not gonna go give special permission to Susie and Jack and whatever name is. So I put all this user or users, I put them in one group and I give permission to that group. And that's how we deal with it. Whatever you want to share, whatever object you want to share on a network, is better to use a group, because the group basically manages the group manages the users. So that's very, very important. Okay, let's see what happened to our friend here. Okay, talking about the files. So over here, if you go over here, you can go to, let's see. Okay, so this is my my drives right here, VMS. So if you click on it, that's the folder that I store all the virtual machines. So it already created one. So if you click on it, it'll give you the name of the virtual machines. It's a folder. It's not a file. Then click on it. You have the virtual hard disk and you have the virtual machines. So if you click on the virtual disks, that's the RM server. The properties, what did it say? That's your virtual disks. So can I go further? You can't. The only thing you can do with this, I think you can mount it. You can mount this one to give it a drive ladder. Okay. Now, there is time you need to mount this one, especially if you do what we call you install virtual machine in the virtual machine. So you need to put an iOS on this one here in order to install to create virtual machine on the virtual machines. But this is good to know that on this virtual machines has two folders. You have virtual hard disk and you have the virtual machines. And all these files associated with the virtual machines. And now I can move this one here from one storage to the other. And that's what we call replication. You replicate it. So if this particular drive messed up or this server messed up, your virtual machine will be available on another server. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what else we can do. So if I go over here, let's see. Volume, this one doesn't have any volume. Okay, so I have an ISO. The ISO, like I said, you can share it. You already did that. You go to properties. You can share it. And whenever you share it, they give you two. And you have advanced share it, like we talked about earlier. So advanced share it, setting. You add. Share another share name, and you put allow, maximum allow, and the numbers, okay? And also you have a permissions. Share name as ISO folder. ISOs. Description, maybe I put the ISO folder. OS folder. The maximum allow? No, maybe I want just 2 or 3. It doesn't matter. So I cannot change it. I have to do the. Oop. Whatever number. Did I take this number out? Yeah. Yep, with 5 of them. Share name. So if I put the other sign, that means I hide it. Nobody can see it. So that's how you hide it, the administrative share. But for right now, we put ISO plus. Let's give it a name, okay? Okay. Now we created ISO plus. Now, if you go to security tab, okay, then you go to this guy here and you can edit. Notice this has the security tab has more list of permissions. You have full control, modify, read the excuse, list folder, read, write, all that stuff. Okay. So this is a lot of different types of permissions in there. And you go to advanced, and this is where you can enable inheritance. And inheritance means what? If you have a folder and you have a bunch of subfolders and files in it, whatever permission you have on that folder, all the subfolders and files inside of it is going to be inherited that permission. This is another, we'll talk about that later. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
All right.
No, sir.
Looks like we need to have another session in here. Yeah, it's a good securing. Okay, so we're gonna stop right here. I'm gonna see you next class if you don't have questions. But this stuff, I mean, we can talk about it from all the time, but please do the lab. And that's how you learn it, by doing it. So, I mean, we talk about this stuff, but if you don't apply it, if you don't practice it, it's not gonna sink. Okay. So how many of y'all have covered up all the labs from chapter 1 and 2 and start on 4? Because chapter 3 is not in there. You caught up
I
with
just
it?
have 2 and 4 left. I just have 2 and 4 left.
I did 1 and 2.
Okay.
Chapter 9.
Okay, so if you don't have a question. 3, you don't have to do 3. Chapter 3, you don't have to do it. We're just doing 1 and 2 and 4 for right now. If you don't have a question, I'll stop recording. And I'll see you in about a few minutes for Cisco 2.
All right.
Any question?
No, sir.
I got some people. All right.